Welcome to Pathways to Peace, creating peace inside and around us with emotional intelligence, or EQ. With your host, Matt Perlstein. In every episode, we explore the art, science, and magic of EQ for peace, power, and purpose in life. You can find this show at www.eqforpeace.org and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. Now here's the host of Pathways to Peace, Matt Perlstein.
Hello. Welcome back again. This is an important show, in my opinion, one of my favorites so far, because we are talking about how to create inner peace inside of ourselves. We've talked about the big picture, and now we're going very, very specific on how we as humans have issues, and we can get to inner peace inside of us, because that's where it all starts. It all starts with us. Sorry. We'd like to change the world from the outside, but it starts from the inside. So I have a very special guest this time. Cendie Stanford is one of my heroes because she works with people who've had really tough backgrounds, and she has as well, and they're getting through it. And she's a great example of how to do it different, even though stuff has happened to you, trauma, pain, abuse, all of it. Even though no excuses, right, Cendie? No excuses. Get her done. We can make it happen better. We don't have to live our lives messed up like that, right? You're muted if you...
I wanted to come out, but I was just going to let you go. Like, yes, everything Matt said, yes. Hi, thank you for having me.
You bet. So, let's get into it. Yeah, let's get into it. If we could, we have a PowerPoint as usual, and I will explain it as usual, because we're not supposed to have PowerPoints on a podcast, but I do anyway, because I have talking notes and I'm addicted to them or whatever. Anyway, I have PowerPoint. So if you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube, you can see it. If not, you can't, and I can make it available. But here we go. So we're talking about dealing with our past, and even our emotional past. Our big emotions are trauma. Trauma just means big emotional upheaval. Big emotions happen to you. Very likely you also changed your mind about things. Is what is the magic of this whole thing, is that we need to deal with both of our big emotions that happened with our trauma, and what we took from that event, or many events, or whatever it is, what we decided about life as a result of those events. So if we can deal with both our left brain, our thoughts that happen at the time, and our right brain, our feelings and emotions that happen at the time, and since maybe, then we can do some magical things and make some magical changes to it. So let's go on. What I'd like to do this time is discuss our traumatic childhood events. We call them ACEs, all right? And Cendie's a master in the ACEs, and she'll explain those to you in a minute. ACEs show up. They show up now. The stuff that happened to us keeps happening, or keeps affecting us. Excuse me. It may or may not keep happening, actually, but it affects us even now. And it's really amazing how that works. As we deal with things, there's kind of this domino effect, that if you can deal with stuff from way back, you can get all the way up to the present. So I also want to give you some good news on emotional intelligence and how it can lead to healing, and give you some resources at the end. So, all right. So this is Cendie's expertise. So take it away.
Matt, I just love your conversation. Like, I just learned something. We've only been on for 4 minutes. I've been trying to learn about, like, memorize the left-right brain thing. And the first thing you said today is the left is where the thoughts are, and the right is where the emotions are. And when those two things come together, it produces who we are and how we respond to stress. You just made me understand that in like the shortest time. Thank you. So I'm Cendie Stanford, and I found out about these things called ACEs in 2020. Okay, so I'm going to explain exactly what these 10 particular categories are and why they made my life flash before my eyes, my entire life. So here I am, 45, and I ended up founding this organization called ACEs Matter. And how I'd like to explain this to your audience is, first, I am not a doctor. I am a person that has lived through all 10 of these experiences before I turned 18 years old. And I'm going to explain like what that means. So not being a clinician or a doctor, I'm going to encourage that anybody that listens to this, that you talk to your physician about them. If you hear something that makes you, makes your right brain side have some sort of emotion, because there are going to be thoughts and emotions that go along with this, for those that listen to the live, or if you're watching live, or if you're listening on the radio. But real quick, so Cendie Stanford, and here's something that people can know about me before I tell about the 10 ACEs. I have lived with the side effects of my childhood trauma for 4 decades without knowing that my childhood trauma would actually influence how I responded to stress in life. And that same childhood trauma that I thought I had left when I left the house, it actually followed me. And it started to present itself in my body in the terms of illnesses that my doctors could not explain. Regular medical doctors could not explain. Thought I was doing everything right, Matt. And in 2020, when I was working for a company, I was at the copy machine, getting ready to make some copies for something that I needed. And I saw a sheet of paper left on the copy machine that had 10 questions on it. And those 10 questions were these 10 categories for those people that are watching live. And so I decided I'm going to answer this. It was a quiz. It said a quiz. Okay, somebody left a quiz on the copy machine. So as I leaned over the work area, I started answering these questions. It was 10 of them. And the headline started off by saying, did any of these things happen to you before you turned 18 years old? So I go, okay, psychological abuse. It actually said emotional abuse on the one that I took. And it gave an example, like, were you ever made to feel like you didn't have anybody to talk to about your feelings? Or were you teased or picked on as a result of blah, 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 anything? And I was like, yeah, as a matter of fact, I had a nickname. I was the skinny, bald-headed Black girl. And they gave me this nickname that kind of stuck with me because I was told that I was not as pretty as my cousins, because my skin was darker and my hair was shorter. So immediately that was the thought that came to mind when I answered the question about emotional abuse. And then physical abuse. Were you ever hit to the point where it left bruises? And I was like, yeah, as a matter of fact, that was the default way that in my culture, if kids weren't behaving, you got hit. And if it left a bruise, then typically it would be followed by, well, you shouldn't have been misbehaving. I told you not to do that. So yeah, physical abuse. And so I went to the next one, sexual abuse. And I actually said, nope, I don't think I was ever sexually abused. But when I saw that question, I was like, I don't think that qualified as sexual abuse, because I was 12. The guy might have been in his early 20s, and this trigger warning, he didn't penetrate. So maybe that doesn't count as sexual abuse. So I didn't give myself a yes for that question. So I go down the list, and all in all, of the 10 questions that were on this piece of paper that was left on the copy machine, I ended up responding, yes, these things all happened to me before I turned 18 years old, all at that time except the sexual abuse one, because I really didn't understand, what this quiz was about. So in that moment in February of 2020, I left thinking that my childhood adversity score was a 9 out of 10. Each of these categories from the ACEs score, which ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, it's an abbreviation that was coined by the Center for Disease Control, the CDC, that everybody knows who they are, back in the late 90s. And the research study was done in conjunction with another medical group organization that had just had this light bulb moment when they were studying women who were struggling with obesity. So that research study, as loud as it possibly could, said, hey, world, if we don't all collectively start focusing on ACEs, and this again was back in the late 90s when Mike Tyson and Holyfield had the fight and Mike Tyson bit his ear off. Like, this is around the same time this study had gotten put out and put on a shelf. But the study said loud and clear, Matt, the study said loud and clear that if society doesn't focus on preventing ACEs, we're going to end up with lots of adults who have mental health issues. We're going to end up with lots of children and adults who use guns to communicate their upset. We're going to end up with a lot of adults.
That is what's happening.
End up in abusive relationships. We're going to end up with a lot of divorces, and we're going to end up with a lot of intergenerational trauma. That's what the ACEs study said to me. Tell your wife I say hi.
Yeah, my wife's going to work. Bye, Father. So ouch. First off, ouch. Sorry all that stuff happened to you. That's incredible. Ouch. And good job in taking it in and doing something with it. As I mentioned earlier, you're one of my heroes as far as taking stuff that happened to you and using it to help other people, to help yourself and other people. It's pretty cool. And now you're helping other people help other people with their stuff, and that's awesome. That is so awesome. So about the ACEs themselves, they it was 10 questions that came up. They started at Kaiser, I believe. It's a hospital system in California. And they and if you want to take this question, these are not the real questions. They're a little more specific, but they're just yes or no questions. 10 yes or no simple questions. Yes or no. Did this happen to you before you're 18 or not? And what they found in the medical system in Kaiser, it's a hospital, right? And it was not mental health, it was physical health. And what they found is that there was a direct connection between the number of yeses on this quiz from childhood and severe physical ailments as an adult. And they made the connection between emotions and physical. And I don't think that's ever been done before scientifically. And they went, wow. And it is now, they use it throughout Kaiser. They use it throughout many, many hospital systems and doctors' offices. You may have seen the quiz before. It went all the way up to the Surgeon General of the United States, and they're saying, wow, this matters. This matters a lot. And what the kind of magical side note to it for them was that by asking the questions at Kaiser, their number of doctor office visits went down like 11% or something ridiculous because of just by asking the questions, they're saying that so many medical problems and need for medical health or medical care is based on our emotions, that it's emotional based, not as physical based. It may turn into physical, which is wild too. Then, so there's it's emotion based to begin with, and B, it turns into physical, and now we got to deal with both the physical and the emotional, right? Is that what you found as well?
You're right. You're spot on. So the first thing I'm going to ask users to do is, if you do decide to go know your ACE score, like that is the first thing to becoming trauma aware. When you think about the emotions part, I think that the reason why they started with asking that these things happen to you before 18 is because those doctors knew that our template of how we will handle our thoughts and emotions are formed in the first 7 years of life. You remember, that's the first time, we meet Santa Claus, or if you believe in Santa Claus. And a lot of first happen in those first 7 years of life. Right. And so that gets imprinted in a child's brain, like you talk about. Right. And imagine a child. This is hard to imagine, but it happens. It's very, very common. Children who are sexually abused before the age of 7, they end up having the most detrimental effects long term, especially if they didn't get the treatment earlier on in childhood. So the emotions that come with not understanding why somebody would do this to me, and the thoughts that go with it, left and right brain, that forms how we respond to anything similar or that our body thinks is similar to those events, whether it's sexual abuse, physical abuse, or any forms of neglect. And the last thing I want to say about the test is that 5 of those questions directly involve what the kid's environment was like between those first 18 years. Were you in a home where the parents were abusive to each other physically or verbally? Because if you saw that in your first 7 years, then guess what? That became the template of how you probably communicate as an adult without even knowing about it. If you were in a home where maybe somebody was too intoxicated or on drugs and they weren't able to meet your needs physically or emotionally, then that likely will become the way you respond to stressors in your adulthood, which doesn't seem really fair. So, for people who are going to take the ACE score, I like to say that the number just gives you a blueprint of like where to start if you happen to be in adulthood and there's areas physically or mentally that you're struggling with that nobody can seem to figure out. And that's where trauma awareness starts with you. And the last thing I want to say, because in our culture, we were taught that things that happen in this house stay in this house, like you don't share your business. And because that's a part of the culture, hence this being intergenerational month. September actually was designated as intergenerational month. But ACEs are not an excuse, but an explanation. ACEs are not an excuse, but an explanation. And one of my new mentors shared that with me this week that I wanted to repeat. So, yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Wow. Not an excuse, an explanation. I'm going to write that down. That's a good one. What I know, I want to go back just a minute because I forgot that I said I was going to read the slides because some people can't see them and we're talking about them as if people can see them. So and if you want to take the test, go to Cendie's website. It's ACES Matter, ACESMATTER.org, acesmatter.org. And there's a button right there that says take the test, and it's quiz, sorry. And so 10 yes or no questions, right? So they're let me read them real quick. Psychological abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional neglect, physical neglect, loss of a parent for any reason, including divorce, mother was treated violently or somebody was treated violently. That's wild too, because it doesn't matter if they touched you, if they touched each other, if they were violent with each other, it affected you. I guarantee it. That's incredible. And there's pictures. I have a picture of the brains of a normal brain versus one of a kid that was abused, and it just kind of stops growing. Their brain stops growing at under 7, like Cendie was saying, and it stops there. It's amazing. So mother was treated violently or somebody was treated violently, substance abuse, mental illness, or criminal behavior. And again, anybody in the household, it didn't have to be you or against you. It affected you. So
true story.
Yikes, right?
True story. Yeah.
So we now have some slides up on the screen that show the direct connection again between the number of ACEs, the number of yeses, and the incidence of alcoholism, the incidence of needing antidepressant prescriptions. Direct connection. Each one of them goes. The graph is like that. It goes up. It goes up. I'm trying to show it like you can't say. Yeah. The graph goes up. The more ACEs you have, the more likely you're going to have alcoholism. You're going to need antidepressants. You're going to need, you're going to be violent. You are going to be violent. Watch out for that one. And smoking. So those are all behavioral. What I didn't put on here, I'm sorry to say, is the other graphs that I have that show that the more ACEs you have, more likely you're going to have cancer, more likely you're going to have COPD, more likely you're going to have diabetes, la, 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 la. It goes on, and it's incredible. That's the part that got the medical industry involved. Mental health is one thing, you know, how that's sort of important, becoming more important, which I'm really happy to say. But
Yeah.
the medical side of it, where the big bucks are actually, is why is this happening? What happened? Why are these people getting so sick? And how did they get what is the basis of it? Like Cendie was saying, there are times where a medical doctor is diagnosing and working with somebody and they're like, this doesn't make sense, this doesn't make sense. It's not it's not a physical problem, but it's become physical because of your emotions. And wow, right? Wow.
Yep. That's
So
it. Wow.
go ahead.
Wow. It's like
Yeah,
seeing your life flash before your eyes. And while we're on
it
this
is.
slide, this is a lot
Yeah,
of bad news being dropped off,
it
right?
is.
And I became aware of that in 2020. Like, oh, is there any pot of gold at the end of the rainbow? Because first of all, we were children that never asked for these adverse childhood experiences.
No.
And now we are adults that have to heal from them. Well, how
Yep.
unfair. So I'm going to go back. The ACEs are
Yep.
not an excuse, but an explanation. And so this is our chance to take our power back. I now know that as a result of the toxic stress that built up from my childhood, I'm more likely to pick up a cigarette and become addicted to it because my brain finally found peace. You with
Yep.
me? I'm more likely,
Yep.
my brain is more likely to find peace in antidepressants. And again, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a doctor, but for
Yep.
me personally, whether the data is enticing to you or not, I can tell you, I used to start my day off before I learned about ACEs with Adderall to get me through the day. And at the end of the day, I would finish it with Ambien because my nervous system was out of whack. And medicine was the only thing that I thought would help me because I didn't know why am I abnormal? What's wrong with me? Which leads us to the next slide.
It does. It does. Yeah. And let me just say too that if again a medical disclaimer here is that if you were prescribed medication by a professional, we're not saying stop taking it because it's had to do with your emotions. We are not saying that, right? Cendie?
No.
We are saying, in fact, quite opposite. If you were prescribed by medical, then do that. What I am saying and what we are saying is while you're doing that, start working on your past, work on you while you're doing that, because there's so much stuff you can do all day long that can help you. So let's talk about this awesome book.
So what learning about my ACE score revealed to me, and my connection with, I needed prescription drugs to calm. I thought I needed prescription drugs to calm my nervous system because I didn't know my childhood was following me. I literally didn't know. So when I read this book by Oprah and Bruce Perry, who is a medical doctor, he goes in to explain to say, guess what? It didn't start with you, but it can end with you. And it's not, Cendie, what's wrong with you.
Problem.
It is. He says in here, and I internalized this like he was speaking directly to me because my story lived in this book. No matter what your score is, if you got all 10 of them or one of them, this book, along with a few others that I would highly recommend, explain just how powerful our childhood experiences are on our mental and physical health. And so instead of me asking myself what was wrong with me, this book, and also the one written by Nadine Burke-Harris, helped me understand that it was not what was wrong with me, but it was what happened to you. So I think if we as a society, just like we know how beneficial emotional intelligence is, as a society, if we were to take emotional intelligence and put ACEs side by side, it would answer the question of what happened to kids. It would answer. Like for me, I know why now, how my tongue got me in trouble a lot, both in my personal and professional relationships. My tongue got me in a lot of trouble because the template from my childhood when it came to controversy was tongue lashing back at people, was resentful comebacks to people that said things that my body didn't like. And I didn't know that, right? So I now know how to recognize when I'm having those feelings in my body, and I don't call myself crazy because I know that it was what was exposed to me in my childhood, that template. that is buried, kind of like the Titanic at the bottom, that I obviously can't see because that was so long ago. So this book, I highly encourage. It is a soft opening to the conversation of understanding, there's nothing wrong with you. There is some factory defects, if you will, like from a phone. If you were to take a phone out your bag and it's like, wait a minute, this is not what I paid for. It's kind of like that, right? It just, there's some things in our nervous system that need to be reset. And Dr. Bruce Perry goes into a wonderful explanation of just what it is that we can do if we happen to be adults who had these traumatic experiences. And now we're just trying to figure out, where do I go from here? So I don't get any kickbacks from promoting this book. I just highly recommend it. Like, and if you buy the Audible version, you're going to hear Winfrey and Perry actually narrate the whole thing. So it makes it that much better.
Cool. That's cool. By the way, the book is called What Happened to You? ? What Happened to You? Conversations on Trauma, Resilience, and Healing by Bruce Perry, MD, and Oprah Winfrey. Fantastic book. It would help explain some things and what to do about it. So that's our message, I think, for today, really, is that A, stuff happened to you, probably. B, it's probably still affecting you, even though it happened a long time ago. And C, you can do something about it. You can do something with it, and you can do something about it. And that's the very, very good news, in my opinion, right? Very, very good news. Some of the best news I ever heard.
If you're interested in breaking intergenerational trauma, this is where you start. You start by knowing whether your ACE score is a 1 because you had a parent that, chose alcohol as their go-to substance, but they were high functioning. Like maybe your parents were high functioning and it didn't appear that there was nothing wrong, but it would definitely open up what I call Pandora's box if you happen to be having troubles in that same area of your life as an adult. So if you're interested in breaking intergenerational trauma that has been passed down so that our next generation of kids have a better start at life, then I would start here.
Yep. And for you, kids, your family, your friends, your everybody.
This is a great graphic.
Here's a graphic. Yeah. It's one of my favorite graphics is on the screen, as showing Grandpa busting the father, yelling at him. You were calling him name. You're stupid. The father then saying you're not good enough, and they're passing it down. And then the guy in the middle is going, whoa, wait a minute, wait a darn minute. I am not going to pass that on to my kids and their kids. I'm stopping it. I'm changing it. I'm doing it different. And I got to say that this is some of the hardest work you'll ever do. I'm sorry. This is not fun. One of my favorite hashtags is, it ain't always fun, but it's got to get done. It ain't fun, but it's got to get done. This is some of the most hardest work you'll ever do in your life. And do it. Please. I'm encouraging you to do this emotional work. One other note I wanted to say is that, as far as medical versus emotional, you can have really, really strong emotions. You can have very strong anger, fear, sadness. Those are the big 3 that I recommend that we deal with. That we said that in the last week. Fear, anger, and sadness. Those 3. If we can get really, really good at those 3 and deal with them as much as our body feels them, there just isn't much that life can throw at us that we can't handle. It's a beautiful thing. And it means you're not crazy. Yep. You can have strong emotions and not be crazy, right?
You can have strong emotions like the Hulk in the Avengers, right? And you can know how to tame them. Let me add this before we have to get to the next slide. I just started watching the Avengers series. I've never been a big fan of the Marvel movies. And in the last one I watched, I realized that the Hulk, remember the Hulk, when he gets angry, he just turns green and takes everything out on everybody. The Hulk in this particular Avenger movie, he had been away to manage his emotions. I guess he went on some 2-year self-awareness thing. And when he wanted to get mad and angry, he couldn't. I saw that one little clip in there and he was like, I'm trying to get mad and I can't. It was great. So that was a perfect example.
Really? Well, I have to say that the result of this emotional work, or inner child work, if you will, or past, whatever you want to call it, is not necessarily that you never be angry again, or you're never hurt, or you're never sad, or you're never afraid again. That's not the point. The point is to get good at it. The point is that you are going to feel those stuff again, and that's okay, because you're going to be able to handle it. You're going to be able to, what we call, respond rather than react, right? Like the Hulk used to go nuts and busting up everything and everybody. And what I was hoping you were going to say is that he went to 2 years and then he could come back and he could be just as angry, because some things make me angry still. I'm angry a lot about a lot of things. In fact, I just read another book, which is fantastic, that I'd recommend, called The Gift of Anger, Gift, The Gift of Anger, by Gandhi. Check that out, by Aaron Gandhi, who was Mahatma Gandhi's grandson, who went to him and said, I've been angry so much, I get in fights all the time. And you know what Mahatma Gandhi said? Good. I'm glad you're angry. I'm glad you care. I'm glad you're passionate about things. I'm glad things matter. Now, let's take that anger and do something with it, because that's what he did. Something positive with it, something real with it. That's what he did. And he said, good that you're angry. Good. Be angry, because there's a lot of stuff that's not cool. You guys, there's a lot of stuff that's going on. I'm angry about a whole bunch of things, and that's okay with me. And I don't take it out improperly. I'm trying to use it and channel it and direct it and focus it. And I feel better. I get stuff done. I don't trash my relationships. I don't ruin people's lives, that kind of thing. I'm trying not to anyway.
I used to.
Anger's a good thing.
I used to, Matt. I used to do all those things, right? I used to be like the Hulk, and that was because I didn't have control of my anger as well. So you make a good point.
So the result of emotional intelligence work is to handle our emotions better, not to not have them, because all emotions are good. It's all information that we're getting. And if you're angry about something, that means this is not going the way I want it to, and maybe I can do something about it. It's pretty cool. So anyway, so we don't have to pass it on. We don't have to keep this anger in our body, or sadness or fear or all that stuff. We don't have to. Our body retains it stuff, and it messes with us, and it causes dis-ease, right? And in our body, and stuff happens, and really bad things happen to us as it breaks down, as it's tired of being tense, as it's incredibly stressed, right, from the inside out at a cellular level. That's why they recommend meditation and yoga and stuff like that, to be able to just relax at a cellular level and let some of this stuff go, because you've got pain and anger and sadness. It stays in our body unless we deal with it. So we're really encouraging you, if possible, to deal with it. Please.
I like that. So, relax at a cellular level. I'm going to use that one. Relax at a cellular level.
There's wait, let me tell you, hey, I've got a great research on that. A Harvard Medical School, Dr. I'm not sure I'm going to remember it right now. Harvard Medical School, they are working on that, and they said 10 minutes a day of meditation. And what you do is two things. There's only two rules of meditation. One is that you make sound, which is really cool. While you're doing it, make a sound, om or whatever it is. You make this sound, and that gets it down into your body and relaxes your cells at a cellular level, apparently. And the second thing is that when your mind drifts off into something else, gently bring it back. That's it. Gently bring it back and stick with what you're doing. 10 minutes a day. If you can do that, they've found some incredible results physically. And how much does that cost, by the way? How much meditation cost? Nada.
Well, nada if you do it on your own. There are programs. I actually did pay to go through a meditation program, but that was after I'd really gotten into it. But I tell you that meditation was number one on my list of the first things that I went through when I experienced this rapid transformation. I would not be here if it wasn't for me practicing with meditation with my very limited experience. Nice.
Yeah, all this stuff is you may pay someone to read a book or take a class or do a workshop or whatever to get the information, but once you have it, baby, it is yours. This is emotional intelligence. It's free. It's inside all of us. We were born with it. We just don't know how to use it. And so it's, again, another magical quality of all of this is that it's all free. It's all free. All of it inside of us.
We were born with it, like Maybelline. Maybe you're born with it. We were born, and it's okay that you have the right to be angry, right? Because it's a natural emotion that comes as a result. What you don't have the right to do is to take your anger out on somebody else, right? Like, otherwise there's consequences to it. So we were born with it. We were born with it. It's just getting it back.
Yep. We have all the emotional tools we need in our body. We just don't know how to use them. So, and kids are born. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old grandkids. The girls, they are fabulous, wonderful. My unbiased opinion, of course, and I get to see them tonight, which I'm really happy about. And I watch them because it's fascinating to me. And they're good. They were peaceful. They were calm. They were right out of the chute. Literally, they were good. And if something goes wrong, then they have an emotion and they feel it, and they hungry, or angry, or tired, or they need a poopy diaper or change, or they're something is and they're in pain. They have emotions, and they express the emotion right naturally. And then when it gets resolved, then they go right back naturally to being okay again, to being peaceful and loving and happy and calm again, back to their natural state. And so what we're saying is that what we as adults need to be able to do, and what we need to be able to teach kids how to do, is to deal with our negatives, deal with our fear and anger and sadness and all that stuff. We need to deal with that stuff. We do have to deal with it. That's mental health. And positive mental health, like positive psychology says, we can even do better than that. We can not only just resolve the problem and go back to normal, we can do better than that. We can thrive, not just survive. We can be powerful and loving and peaceful and happy and successful. And live longer. The stats now are showing that people who deal with their emotions live longer. People who have high emotional intelligence actually live longer and make more money and are happier. It's amazing stuff. So big EQ fan, as you can hear. So these are the 4 steps. You want to talk about these a little bit? These are 4 steps to emotional intelligence, all free.
All free. Without stealing your thunder, I think as I look at this slide in the 4 domains, it talks about perceiving emotion and facilitating that left and right brain, the thought with the emotion. Like, I don't think they like me. Oh, now my body's going to feel sad, right? All that kind of stuff. Understand the emotion and managing the emotion. When I think about these 4 domains, these are all behaviors that are learned in the first 7 years of life. Like you said, if a 1 or 5-year-old gets mad at their sibling for taking the toy, and the parent comes in and doesn't have the tools to help with that conflict, then whatever the parent teaches in that moment with that child who does not know what to do with this emotion becomes a part of that child's template of how they're going to perceive emotion, what thought goes along with that emotion, understanding how to handle that big emotion, and then to manage it, right? So I wouldn't go into, I know we don't have the time to go into each one of them, but again, parents have to have the tools and get the training if they want to raise emotionally intelligent children. I think it was Dalai Lama that said, I'm going back to the meditation, that if every 8-year-old in the world is taught meditation, we will eliminate violence from the world within 1 generation. Again, really? If you're listening, this is from Dalai Lama. Beautiful. Dalai Lama believes that if every 8-year-old in the world is taught to meditate, to deal with these 4 domains, like when they come up, we would eliminate violence in 1 generation.
Wow.
That's appealing to me. When all you got to, right? That is appealing. So again, we're not doctors, and obviously people's traumas are different in how their body experienced it. But I would say, just in terms of the 4 domains of EI, emotional intelligence has to be caught, not taught. I have to catch adults being emotionally intelligent to each other if I am to become a kid that knows how to handle my emotions, and an adult that knows how to handle my emotions.
Yep. And the 4 domains are Understanding yourself. So it's knowing yourself first. That's why we're talking about us. Being able to manage ourselves, right? Once we know, we got to be able to do something with it. We got to be able to control and manage ourselves and respond properly. Knowing others and understanding that other people have thoughts and feelings too. Shocker, huh? But and they're important to you. They're important to them. You want to, and the third one is, or the last one is managing our relationships with others. So it's knowing ourselves, dealing with ourselves, knowing others, and dealing with our relationship with others. Pretty simple, not so easy sometimes, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal. If your thoughts and feelings are important, other people think their thoughts and feelings are important. If you shut up and listen to other people and care what other people think and feel, guess what? They like that. They like it very much. And you're going to have much better relationships. Try it. Try it. Give a damn about the other people, what they're thinking and feeling, just like you want them to care about what you're thinking and feeling. So
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. This is a great quote from Cendie's website. It says, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken ones. It's easier to build strong children. So that's what we're trying to do. They're saying that the CDC, Center for Disease Control, said there's 125 million American adults. 60% of American adults have had at least one trauma, one ACE, yes, on those 10 questions, and 52 million have had 3 or more. 52 million of us, 25%, 1 out of 4 of us has had 3 or more of those traumatic experiences in our lives. So chances are we're talking to you or somebody you know, or one of your kids or adults or something. So
notice that it said American adults. So this survey was done on adults who've already left childhood. So that 52 million people that have a score of 3 or more, and we're gonna go out on a limb and say maybe these people don't know it. Some of that 52 million never have learned about ACEs. Guess how they're behaving in the office environment? In the office environment, it's going to look like aggressive behavior, passive aggressive behavior, fight, flight, or freeze anytime there's conflict. In a relationship, it's going to look like narcissistic abuse where somebody never hears you, right? It's going to show up in so many different ways, all because this number says, wow, what happened to you?
Yeah. Yep. So go to acesmatter.org and take the quiz and then good luck.
Do the work.
And then do some work
there. It starts there. Let me do this, Matt. I have to give a disclaimer again. When I first took that test at the copy machine, it didn't do anything for me, right? I called my cousin, asked her, had she ever heard about it? She's like, yeah, I took it too. And this is a cousin that we grew up together in the same household. She said, I think I scored a 9. So at that moment, that was where I left it in February. It wasn't for another 3 months that I was forced to face that score. Okay, so I can tell you people that are listening live or on the radio, depending on where your nervous system is, you might experience some different stages of grief, right? And I'll tell you mine, I was very angry. So as you said, I have the right to be angry. And guess how I took that anger out? I created a business to bring awareness because I thought it was really unfair for us as children with our parents' best intentions. Some of our parents did the best they can. If you have skin color like me, then you know many of your ancestors probably came from just being whipped to get things done, right? So I was at a disadvantage just because of my skin color coming out of childhood. So I went through stages of hate and anger, and I wanted to just everything. So really, I encourage people, if you have a therapist, talk with your therapist about it. If you don't have a therapist, there's plenty of Facebook groups that you can join to like network with people. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll shut up, before people go out and take their ACE score, the ACE score is going to give you information. Information will give you something to think about, but connection will give you something to live for. Information will give you something to think about, but connection will give you something to live for. And that's what we are all yearning for, is connection. And you got to have some decent EQ work if you want people to connect with you, right? I'll leave it there.
Yep. Yeah. And we're going for peace. And I was just remembering, I didn't put it on here, but one of the best Facebook groups that I've found is called Language Lessons of the Heart. Language Lessons of the Heart. And they do serious childhood, inner child work. They're heavy duty into it. And it's a beautiful thing. They're doing a great job with it. It's the most deep cleansing stuff that I've ever seen on Facebook. So you might check that out. I should have put it on here, but
I'm going to drop a comment on the chats, but I have a Facebook group, and the lady who started this Facebook group, she actually knows ACEs from like the back of her palm. And she used that to inform her coaching practices. And that is Jessie Graham Coaching. It's called Jessie Graham Coach on Facebook. So I'm going to drop it in our on the chat of your Facebook page, but I would highly recommend visiting Jessie's page because she talked like that is her language. So I'm going to recommend that to people. Jessie Graham Coaching.
Jessie Graham Coach. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Well, we got to stop. We were supposed to stop at a half an hour. I have not yet made this our 8th one, and I have yet to do it right. Huh?
I could do this all day.
Yeah. So we got to stop. I want to encourage you again to do the work, find out about yourself, learn about your emotions and your thoughts, your belief systems, figure out what happened to you and what you can do about it. And you can do something about it. If you have bizarre illnesses and you don't understand why, or you want to do something while you're taking your medication and while you're trying to fight with the physical side of it, do the emotional work as well, because it is huge. And they've shown over and over again that now more and more studies are showing it's relevant. It's so relevant. So please,
thank you.
Do the work.
And get on the list. The last plug I'm going to do for ACEs Matter, Matt, you've been a guest speaker in our class, but get on the list. We are offering upcoming workshops where you can work with people and connect with people who are experts in different fields. And what we are telling people is that people who work through their childhood adversities overall do better financially, physically, mentally, and spiritually. That sounds really good. So get on the list, go to ACEs Matter, click get on the list, and you can sign up to join one of our upcoming workshops.
Fantastic. All right. Cendie, you're still my hero. You're even more now. Thank you for doing everything that you're doing, and keep doing it. Keep doing it. It's a beautiful thing. So thank you all for listening. Spread the word, please. See you next time.
You've been listening to Pathways to Peace, creating peace inside and around us with emotional intelligence, EQ, with your host, Matt Perlstein. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, and sharing this show with others. You can catch prior episodes at www.eqforpeace.org and on YouTube, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and more.